what time? 5:26.
No, 5:40.
Almost 5:40.
The adhan or the iqama?
So it's probably
5:29,
yeah,
5:28.
yeah.
And the Fajr is moving back 5:28.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Maghrib and Fajr around the same time.
At 5:37.
1 a.m. or
Yeah,
1 p.m.
5:37.
Huh?
I'm at that at 5:37. Show.
And Fajr is about what? 5:30, 5:32?
Yes.
5:30.
5:28.
5:27.
Maghrib is like 5:39, 5:37.
Change with the Fajr to 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد, this is the 7th sitting, the السابع في كتاب صفة صلاة النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم من تكبيرها إلى تسليمها أنك تراها يا الشيخ الإمام العلامة محدث الفقيه محمد نصر الدين الألباني رحمه الله تعالى, ونسأل الله أن يجزيه عن الإسلام والمسلمين آمين. Ask Allah to bless him, reward him greatly for his contribution towards Islam and Muslims. We're still with a technique. A technique is the statement to say Ameen, just like takbir. The tab, the beginning of those words is the tab fa'id, showing you somebody singing, doing. So, kabbir, to make big, to magnify. Takbir, to magnify. Technique, the act of saying Ameen. So we'll have two questions, inshallah, about Allah. But before, I want to also mention something about the Ameen on Jummah and clarify something just for justice sake that, alhamdulillah, we mentioned again the incident that happened. This was years ago in Buffalo. The brothers didn't have very much knowledge, although they thought they did, and they fired a very dedicated, hard-working Hafiz of the Quran used to give the khutbah. They really didn't have anybody to give the khutbah, so he was giving the khutbah. He didn't want to. He would try to go download off the internet what was sound. He would quote some of the scholars of the past and today from the people. But because he didn't say Ameen, then the fitna broke out. Is he really on the manhaj? Is he really celibate? He don't even say Ameen. Oh, this, that, and the third. Serious. And Allah musta'an. And they fired him. Ran him away. Let this be a lesson that it's just not one way. And let this be a lesson, just because you read this book in English doesn't mean you understand it. Wallahi, we thank Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala blessed us. Allah gives us stuff sometimes we don't even deserve it. But Allah Azza wa Jalla was good for us. From it, He blessed us to study with the ulama in Egypt, Yemen, Sudan. Some of us studied Saudi Arabia, some of us studied India, Pakistan, some people studied Mauritania, some people studied Mali, people studied in different places. That's a net from Allah. Maghrib, Morocco. I have to remember Jazair, Nigeria. Ulama hunaka fi kulli amakin yujid al-ulama. You'll find scholars of Ahlul Sunnah, scholars of Islamic scholarship everywhere, man. South Africa, subhanallah. Hatta ha huna ulama. Some scholars here. People be saying it's not. So you mean to tell me the only scholars is Shaikh Fawzan and Shaikh? You gotta be kidding me. Scholars are everywhere. That is the ta'ifa in ummati ala al-haqqi zahiri. Prophet said there will never cease to be from my nation a group of people that will be on the haqq, and they will be open for you to see. Imam Ahmad said, Humul ulama. This hadith is talking about ulama, scholars. So we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And wallahi, because we studied this book, with scholars, although it was written by a scholar, will have so much benefit from studying this book. It's amazing. So we want to thank Allah Azza wa Jal in statement and action by studying and reviewing it, and we ask Allah to bless Shaikh Imam al-Albani immensely and all of those who studied and gave a service to his book. Again, it's not about personality, who the person is. It's about sanitizing, cleaning, uplifting, renewing the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As for the Ameen on the Mimbar, the question was asked, and then we have two other questions. When the Imam is on the Mimbar and he's making dua, it's so Allah will ask you for Jannah. Oh Allah will ask you to say what you can help out. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. Oh Allah, give us the good in this life. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. And the good, of the hereafter. وَقِينَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Save us from the fire. Should the Imam have his hands up like this, and should the people have their hands up? Secondly, do they say Ameen after his dua or not? Some scholars, they said that you could say Ameen after the dua. But as for raising the hands, you only raise the hands when you make dua. The Imam is making dua, there's no reason for you to raise the hands. Now, if you're in Salah and you're doing the Qunut, like in Tarawih, or the night prayer, or you're doing the Qunut of Nawazil when people are being attacked, then this is different. But simply sitting in the masjid, Imam is making any dua, and you put your hands up, Ameen, Ameen. No. You shouldn't raise your hands for any reason except you're making dua. Or that you're in the salah and there's a place for you to raise your hands in the salah. As for saying Ameen, then scholars have said that you could say Ameen. And just as again we said, that's not restricted to being in the salah, saying Ameen when a dua is made, which means you say, oh Allah, accept it, oh Allah, answer it, oh Allah, please, give it to us. This is the meaning of Ameen. As for the question, the first question, if a person prays in the masjid, and this is talking about women, and nada.
If their khushu wasn't good, can they offer to pray over?
If the person is praying in the masjid, the khushu, if the person is not good, can they pray over? Khushu. Khushu? Khushu, my khushu. What is your khushu? You got khushu, brother? Khushu, with the ayn, khushu. And the khushu, varies from person to person, time to time. It depends. And this is a thing of the heart. Concentration. Wallah, at times you can pray, noise is being made, the heater, people making wudu, people walking back and forth talking. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't distract you in your heart. You know what you're reading, you're concentrating, you're thinking about the hellfire. Other times, somebody can make a loud noise and it throws you off. Now you forgot what you were reciting. Now you can't go back and get it because you're confused. It just won't come to mind. Sometimes you're praying. Something happens, like children crying. Prophet Sallam would shorten the salat because he hears the baby behind with the ladies crying. So it doesn't ruin the people's salat. Somebody is going to pray, it doesn't bother him. Somebody else is going to bother him. The mother may be bothered. The father may be bothered. Somebody else who just don't like your baby's crying is going to be bothered. It depends on the person, the state of mind, how much they were into the salah, how much they understand what they read of the salah, how much they fear Allah, how much they concentrating, how much good deeds they did prior to the salah, how much bad they did prior to the all of that has to do with your khushu'. If you're hungry, you got to go to the bathroom, etc. So it depends on that person. Secondly, if that person feels my salat was that poor, I need to pray over because my mind, my heart was not in the salat, yes, you should pray over. If you feel that my mind and my heart was on Jupiter, but I was here standing on earth praying, I don't remember what I was reciting. I didn't get no spiritual benefit. I don't even feel like I prayed. The answer is yes. You need to pray over. But if you feel I could have got a better salat out of that, maybe I got 70%, I could have got 80. I was into it, but not really like I wanted to. Then, that's what the dhikr is for after salat. When you say, Allahumma innaka anta salam, amika salam, tabarak, ya dhal jalali wal ikram, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika, wa shukrika, wa husni ibadati. That's why the Prophet used to say, after tasneem, salamu alaikum rahmatullah, salamu alaikum rahmatullah. Abdullah ibn Abbas said he would know when the salat finished in the masjid because you would hear the people say Allahu Akbar out loud. Then you hear somebody say Astaghfirullah, 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 Allahumma innaka anta salam. This is one of the reasons the Prophet made these adhkar, sayings and mentionings after salah, because it raises the merit. It makes up for what you lacked in the salah. And that's why we should learn them. It's a protection for you. It fortifies your iman, but it also fills in the mistakes and gaps that you may have had in the salah. From last week he said a person will have ushur. What's ushur? 10th of a salah. Another will have a 9th, an 8th, a 7th, all the way to the Prophet. Man, person might have a 10th of a salah. Can you imagine? That's all you got. But that person got that 10th. That's how much kushur they have. Somebody else has 20%. Somebody has 30. Somebody has 40. Somebody has 50. Somebody had 100%. It depends on what's going on with you physically, mentally, around you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best knower. Again, yes, if you feel that your salat was, 0%, definitely need to pray on. But if you got 10, 20, 30, you felt you could have did better, then you'll make it adhkar, you make it dhikr. You have sunnah maratib, sunnah to go after the salat. Of course, in this case, there's no sunnahs after asr. No sunnahs after asr. Unless you're making up something from the previous. You forgot to do dhuhr. You wanted to do the ones after dhuhr. You were busy. Some said that's only for the Prophet. Others said that you can do it. If you forgot something, you can make it up. You have something you need to pray. But in most cases, that's why the sunnahs are there and the dhikr. And if a person again feels that bad or know that the salat was just that lousy, then they can pray over and Allah knows best. What's the second question? If they pray in the masjid alone.
Right. And then congregation comes in and they pray, or can you are allowed to join them?
Now, if the person prays in the masjid alone, the congregation then establishes, and we mean they pray in the masjid during the time of the salah, meaning dhuhr is in, they pray, yes. And then the people in the masjid pray a half hour later. Can I pray with the congregation? It's a difference of opinion. The most strongest view is yes. Again, if it's asr, no. Because the Sallam said, La salat, ba'da al-asr. You shouldn't pray after asr. But Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah said that exception to the rule is if you have to make up something that's an obligation. Or you need to make, for example, istikhara, a decision. You've got to make it before Maghrib. Or you come in, you have to pray 2 rak'at before you sit down, Tahiyatul Masjid. Then you're allowed to do that. But just because I want extra credit, I want to get more salat in, and that's what you will be doing if you pray dhuhr. And then they establish dhuhr and you pray with them, you will get extra credit. You couldn't do that with asr. You couldn't do that with maghrib. The Prophet said, that there's no maghrib bayn. You shouldn't pray maghrib twice. But isha, you could do it. Or dhuhr, you can do it. You can't do it with fajr, because the Prophet also said, La salatu ba'd al-fajr. You shouldn't pray after fajr. But again, if you have to make up your sunnahs of fajr, you forgot, I went to sleep and then prayed isha, then you make it before sunrise. Other than that, you don't pray 2 salat with fajr being involved, nor asr, nor maghrib. And I hope this answers the question of Allahu Musta'an. How about it?
قراءته صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد الفاتحة، ثم كان صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ بعد الفاتحة سورة غيرها، وكان يطيلها أحيانا ويقصرها أحيانا لعارض سفر أو سعال أو مرض أو بكاء صبي، كما قال أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه: جوز صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات يوم في الفجر. وفي حديث آخر: صلى الصبح فقرأ بأقصر سورتين في القرآن، فقيل: يا رسول الله لما جوزت؟ قال: سمعت بكاء صبي فظننت أن أمه معنا تصلي، فأردت أن أفرغ له أمه.
Now, this was just, subhanallah wa bihamdihi wa subhanallah al-azim. He just mentioned this. This is happening a lot. It's not deja vu. Don't knock on wood. Astaghfirullah. That they read something that I just mentioned. But a lot of it is because I know the book pretty well, or fairly decent, because again, you study this book. You know, when we were in Yemen, imagine you have your major courses with the sheikh, the head sheikh of the place. Then you have, like in the college, you want to pick this, and then you have those courses independent from the sheikh courses, but other shuyukh that's not as high as him, or they're close to being high like him in knowledge. So this book, for example, Sifat Salat al-Nabi, they call the classes out every Friday night. Who's going to teach what part of the masjid, if it's going to be outside under the tree, if it's going to be on top of the roof, when you go up the steps, go out the door, you're on the roof, it's going to be in the library, you'll be listening. You want to know what the roof is open. It's like, you know, people get like real excited at the movies or at the candy store. The taller people listen. So it says, Sifat Salat al-Nabi, Imam al-Albani. And then they say who's going to teach it. 8 o'clock, Imatos al-Masjid, in the middle of the masjid. Then somebody else teach this book, that book. If you finish this book in 30 days, somebody else opens it the next day or the next week, you could take it again with another teacher. Imagine you become strong, you take one book like 4 times. And each teacher's going to bring different benefits, different arguments, different this. You got to go do your homework, man. So, you know, I'm talking about in my 20s, 30s, 40s. Now I'm 56, almost 57. All of that stuff, you know, you just cram and learn. Now it's still right here. It's amazing, you know. So sometimes he's reading. Now I got to kind of repeat what I just said, but it's because I said something that he's reading now, I got to mention it again. But I just mentioned this, and this is the chapter where the Shaykh brings what the Prophet would read after Al-Fatiha. We dealt with Al-Fatiha. It's a pillar. Do you read it or not? Behind the Imam. Do you read it? When you hear the Imam recite, now what do you do after that? This is the chapter of what the Prophet did after Fatiha. So Anas, he mentioned the Prophet and Al-Albani, he mentioned the Prophet would shorten his recitation. Sometimes he make it medium, sometimes he get the short surah. It depends. If he was traveling, if he was sick, if he was busy doing something he needed to get back to, the baby behind him crying. And there's some hadith the Prophet mentioned, Sahih Muslim, wa dil haja. Some people just got something to do. Us will say, man, you rushing me, man. You want to go back to that stupid store. You chasing dunya. No, and the hadith, the Prophet said, you have people behind you, and you mentioned dil haja. Because said older people. Someone got something to do. Don't tie the people up. Because the longer you hold them, guess what? They don't have no salat anyway. They don't have no khushur because their mind is on that thing. So give them a short salat. Short meaning not so to buffer for an hour and a half. People short sometimes think who Allah have, they want to who Allah will have you to death. That's all they know. No, that's not what's meant by a short surah. Something from the last 30th of the Quran. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى يعني سبح اسم ربك الأعلى والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود يعني والسماء والطارق إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها قل أعوذ برب الفلق قل أعوذ برب الناس. This is what's meant by something short from the Quran. So I said the Prophet will read like that. He said at one time, he cut the salat real short. And Anas asked him, why you cut it that short? He said, because the baby behind, was crying. The lady wasn't going to be able to pray, and it's distracting me, the poor baby. So this is the recitation of the Prophet. But sometimes you'll find you go pray behind the Imam, Isha, he's praying Baqarah, Ali Imran. This is not right. But he might want to remind you of Ayatul Kursi. He might want to remind you of the last two ayat of Baqarah. He might want to read a little bit about Musa because the people's iman is weak. And this is one of the things they blame Uthman ibn Affan, led to them murdering him because he used to do stuff like this. Because he understood that people were weaker now than in the time of who? Umar ibn al-Khattab. Then in the time of who? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Then in the time of course, who? The Prophet. They blamed him when he was on Hajj, Arafah. صلى ركعة صلى 4 ركعات الظهر والعصر جمع بينهما ولا قصر. Uthman ibn Affan. He prayed 4 rak'ah for Dhuhr. Combined it with the second Iqamah, 4 rak'ah of Asr on Arafah. But the Prophet would do 2 rak'ah for Dhuhr, Tasleem, a second Iqamah, 2 rak'ah for Asr, and then you just make dua and read Quran and ask Allah to give you a cry all day until Maghrib. Uthman didn't do that. Even Abdullah ibn Abbas scolded him. He said, you're going to change from the way of the Prophet? But Uthman was Khalifa. He knew the people were weaker. One of the ways he knew they were weaker because the Prophet prophesied they would cut him up like a cow. He seen himself in a dream, bloody, butchered.
Yeah.
So, he went to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Ya Rasulullah. Told him the dream. He said, why would they butcher me like this? One narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, they're going to try to remove your shirt. The shirt means your leadership. The Prophet said, Humul munafiqeen, they are the hypocrites. But look at the fitna.
Yeah.
Some people were involved, they're not hypocrites. Ali punched his son. Punched him. Some narration said in the chest, knocked him down. Who was that? Hassan or Hussein? Which one?
Hassan.
Hassan. Why?
Because he was involved too.
He was security.
Yeah.
He came and said, Qatla Uthmana. Qatla Uthmanu. And this is one of the points they mentioned in the Arabic books too, and poets who learn in the grammar. They said, Ya Abati, Qatla Uthmanu. Qatla Uthmanu. Qatla, Fatha, Fatha, Fatha. Qatala. Past tense. Any 3-letter word that has all Fatha, that's the past tense. Already done. Qatala. They killed. Who did they kill? The person is coming second in the sentence. It's a 2-letter, help me, 2-word sentence. 2-word sentence. Qatala, qatalam, past tense. Now you got to name who was the victim that was killed. The victim, it should be Uthmana with a fatha. Because the one who's affected, the thing that's affected, always going to have a fatha.
مفعول به.
مفعول به. وقد يكون مفعول لأجله.
اللغة سبحان الله.
صح. مفعول فيه, مفعول به, مفعول لأجله. اللهم صل. This was done because of, this was done in spite of, the reason this was done like this. The point is the one or the thing that's affected is going to have fatha. So he came, he said, qatala, no, qatalu. Yeah, qatalu. Because qatalu means they did. You put a wow after the lamb. Qatalu, when a lion has to go after the wow. Qatalu Uthmanu. He said Uthmanu. If you change Uthman now to Uthmanu, it looks like Uthman killed somebody. Has to be Uthman now, like Yani wa kallama Allahu. Remember we said that? Allah spoke. If you say wa kallama Allah, that means somebody spoke to Allah and you negate that Allah spoke to Musa. Like Ahlul Bid'ah, they try to change the meaning. So qatlu Uthmanu. Ali said, what? Qatlu Uthmanu. Then Ali said, Uthman killed who? And then the Hassan Thalban said, Qatlu Uthmana. Changed. He said, what? Oh, because he was security. He said, well, why happened? He said, I didn't leave my post. They jumped over the back wall. So he's at the door. They go around the back, jump over the wall, and go in and stab him up while he's reading Quran. Kill him, butcher him up. Long. Well, maybe say this, what we're talking about now. What you talking about? What you read?
The قراءة بعد الفاتحة or the
بعد that. You don't remember?
no.
The issue of the rak'at you make. And what you read after the rak'at. And you shorten the salah.
Okay.
Prophet was shortened to make it easy. Uthman made it long. So they blamed him on Arafat. Supposed to shorten it on Arafat. We're already in the sun. They can do it all day. We're in the sun, thirsty. Allahumma, Allahumma, Allahumma. So I can't say nothing no more. My voice is hoarse. You're going to pray Dhuhr 4 rak'ah. A second Iqamah, Asr combined 4 rak'ah. One of the best man. Al-Hadi Al-Mustafa, the one who is sent with the guidance and the one that Allah chose, the leader of the prophets and messengers in this life and the hereafter, prayed to, who are you? Blame. But what's my point? Sometimes you do stuff because you know the condition of the people. The norm of the prophets, shorten the salah. Isha shouldn't be long. Maghrib should be shorter than Asr. Asr should be in the middle. Dhuhr should be long in recitation, and Fajr should be long in recitation. Now, there's one lead salah, the Imam, and one masjid man. All the brother do was Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun and Ikhlas. Fajr, people come be mad like that. The salah is over. Like in a minute and 2 minutes. He talking about the Arabs and people come from a background where they finish Fajr, it's almost light outside because the Imam blowing. Read, stand, get your Imam. Yes, the Fajr was mashallah. Come in, everybody leaving. What happened? So and so led us a lot. Mad like that. But in this case, we're selling with shorting, and you see there's a need. Someone is behind you, elderly. Somebody's tired. Someone got something to do. The baby's crying. Then the Prophet will shorten the salah for a trip, traveling, sickness, or like this. Then the Prophet would make the recitation. As such.
أكمل. وكان يقول إني لأدخل في الصلاة وأنا أريد إطالتها فأسمع بكاء الصبي فأتجوز في صلاتي مما أعلم من شدة وجد أمه من بكائه. وكان يبتدئ من أول السورة ويكملها في أغلب أحواله ويقول أعطوا كل سورة حظها لكل سورة ركعة. وكان تارة يقسمها في ركعتين وتارة يعيدها كلها في الركعة الثانية.
This is 3 ways the Prophet would pray. And sometimes the brothers, I heard somebody accuses somebody, but it shows some people have more knowledge than others. Even me, I learned this from Shaykh Muhammad Munir, he mentioned this case. When I say as I said before, I know my place. He come, I'm not saying nothing. I'm part of the elder, inshallah. Allah gives to whom He wills. Listen, man, it's not about I was with the Shaykh, I'm older. Listen, the man, he have something I need, I'm drinking. Sheikh Mukbil, he came here, was in Oklahoma. Not Oklahoma, Oakland, California. He came in 2001, 14/21. Came for some chemo, sick, came from Saudi Arabia. He used to sit in the dars of Sheikh Farid Abdullah. Anybody know Sheikh Farid Abdullah? Sheikh Farid teaching, Sheikh Mukbil sitting right there. You imagine?
Subhanallah.
Yeah. So, Sheikh Fareed tried to get the Sheikh to get up and teach and shut down his duru's. He said, "La ilm al-ilm." He said, "No, knowledge is knowledge. Do your thing." The person who loves knowledge always seek knowledge. No matter how big the island, how much he know, he's going to drink from the cup the same. If you know it, it's a review. If you don't know it, it's added to his treasure. It's a sign of his sincerity about the knowledge. I ain't sitting with you, I'm Sheikh Mukbil. Can you imagine Sheikh doing that? You gotta be kidding. So, Sheikh Fareed didn't believe it was Sheikh Mukbil. He never seen him. He just heard he's here for treatment. But, you know, not Sheikh Mukbil. So he went in his library. He made up 3 questions. They were the hardest questions on earth concerning ilm and hadith. He said if he answered these, he's Sheikh Mukbil. And you know, Sheikh Fareed, he was about to finish the judges program, but he left and didn't go back in the last year. So things happened. He's one of the, like, you know, he's in Muhammad, ibn Saud and Riyadh. That's not like Medina or Makor. This is one of the top Ivy League. You gotta really have a high IQ to get in that school. Ain't no English or Arabic. Sheikh was in that job. Made up the questions, he went. Asked the Sheikh some things. Sheikh said, "Bop, bop, bop." He said, "Sheikh Mukbil." Woo! Subhana Rabbil Azim. Allahu Akbar. What's the point? Man, the knowledge is knowledge. I don't care like he's younger than me and all the time he spent with all the whole lot. Listen, if you come and sit and benefit. Sheikh Muhammad. It's not to break his back, but you know, you respect the ilm. You know, and you love the people with ilm. Allah zakar Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I'm not trying to raise him above what he is, but I learned this point from him. He was talking. He said that the Prophet did used to sometimes read half a surah in one raka'ah and the other half in the next raka'ah. Because people will say this bid'ah. If you're doing with Shamsi wa Duhaha, don't stop at half and then do the rest in the next raka'ah. They said, no, where do you get this from? Do the whole surah. But here you see Sheikh Al-Albani just mentioned the hadith. And some scholars disagree if it's sahih or not, but many scholars say sahih, that the Prophet, it would break the surah up, read half of it in one rak'ah, complete it in the second rak'ah. And this is one way you can do it. It's one way you can do it, but you got to know where the surah breaks at, where the story breaks. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will repeat something, and again, this is why some of them said, even with al-Fatiha, it doesn't nullify your salah, even though it's a pillar, because this is the issue of what you're saying. You're not changing the form of the salah. And one of the things the Prophet would sometimes repeat other than al-Fatiha in the salah. So it's a practice of the Prophet, you know, to emphasize it, to remind himself of it. Maybe it's a dua, so you're saying it over and over and over and over. You know, when the salah, you're making dua. And the scholars said the dua for the one who's in salah is more guaranteed to be answered than just dua outside salah. So there's another reason the Prophet would, and he repeat something, and in the salah, sometime it was a surah, and he, in the one rak'ah, second rak'ah, read that surah again. Now,
وقد كان رجل من الأنصار يؤمهم في مسجد قباء وكان كلما افتتح سورة يقرأ بها لهم في الصلاة مما يقرأ به افتتح بقل هو الله أحد حتى يفرغ منها ثم يقرأ سورة أخرى معها وكان يصنع ذلك في كل ركعة فكلمه أصحابه فقالوا إنك تفتتح بهذه السورة ثم لا ترى أنها تجزئك حتى تقرأ بأخرى فإما أن تقرأ بها وإما أن تدعها وتقرأ بأخرى فقال ما أنا بتاركها إن أحببتم أن أؤمكم بذلك فعلت وإن كرهتم تركتكم وكانوا يرون أنه من أفضلهم وكرهوا أن يؤمهم غيره فلما أتاهم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبروه الخبر فقال يا فلان ما يمنعك أن تفعل ما يأمرك به أصحابك وما يحملك على لزوم هذه السورة في كل ركعة فقال إني أحبها فقال حبك إياها أدخلك الجنة. حبك إياها أدخلك الجنة.
No, something about prayer. Allahu Akbar kabir. Well, and this is why so many people love this book, because the way the Shaykh put it together, you're going to learn Sunnah, you're going to learn Aqidah, Manhaj. It's beautiful the way that the Imam Nasir put this book together. Now, we're talking about how the Prophet would read. And sometimes he would read, break a surah up into 2 rak'ahs. Other times read the whole surah and the whole salat. Other times he would repeat a surah in 2 different rak'ahs. Now, we're talking about a man who, one time they were praying. Anas? They call Anas.
No, just
Mas'ud.
I'm sorry.
That was Sahaba.
سيدنا رجل من الأنصار.
Not Raqayy.
Yeah,
Brother
just-
Ansar.
yeah.
So it's a man from the Ansar. Who is the Ansar? Don't say Dr. York for Flatbush, please.
That's all when Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave Hijrah from Mecca to Medina. He was embraced with the answer of the Prophet. Right.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. People of Medina, when the Prophet made Hijrah, migrated from Mecca to Medina. Barakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. So it was a man from the Ansar, which means that man is a what?
صحابي.
Sahabi. You can't be an Ansar and not be a Sahaba. You could be a Sahaba and not be an Ansar. Bilal, Sahaba. Naam.
نعم.
Muawiyah ibn Sufyan, Sahaba. Naam.
نعم.
But they weren't from the people of the Ansar. Bilal from Africa. And Muawiyah from Mecca. The Ansar are people from Medina. So Salam, the Shaykh has mentioned the hadith where a man from the people of the Ansar was leader Salah Masjid Quba. Masjid Quba is the masjid the Prophet was praying in the beginning when they reached Medina, before his masjid was built. Alhamdulillah, I had a chance to go to Masjid Quba a couple of times. You make a Hajj or Umrah. Hajj you may not be able to, but Umrah you can visit, pray 2 rak'ah there. And we went there and we prayed, and this hadith shows a man was there leading the Salah, Masjid Quba, outside of Medina. And so they said this man, they pick him to lead the Salah, and would lead the Salah, and would never pray except after he would lead the Salah. The last thing he would read would be Qul huwallahu ahad. So whatever he reads, he's going to add it at the end. No matter what it is, how long, how short, it has to read Surah Al-Ikhlas. So it started a debate, a ruckus, problem. And there's people want to know, why is he always doing that? So some people said, well, let's get somebody else to lead the Salah. Y'all don't like him doing that. And they said, no, he's the most knowledgeable, the most pious. So they went and they told the Prophet, there's a problem in the masjid, so-and-so. Every time he lead, he want to say, after he finished the surah, Allah had on the end of the surah, making the rak'ah longer. Why does he do this? So when the man went to the Prophet said, what prevented you from listening to your companions? He didn't want you to do it. It was a problem. Don't do it. Just leave the salat. Why you always got to add Surah Ikhlas at the end of the salat? What prevented you from listening to them? And what prompted you to read Ikhlas at the end of every surah? The man said, because I love it. And I love Allah. Then the Prophet said, and Allah loves you, and may Allah Azza wa Jal love you. هكذا.
حبك إياها أدخلك الجنة.
طيب حبك إياها
Yeah.
حبك إياها
أدخلك الجنة.
Jannah. Because of your love for that surah, Allah is already is revealed to the Prophet right now. Because of your love, that thing came down revelation to the Prophet instantly. Or he heard the door open above. And this is what they said about the hadith. Sabaqa biha Ukkasha. And the man said, Ya Rasulullah, Allah, and yaj'alni min. Oh Allah, ask Allah to make me from these people of the paradise in the long hadith. His name was Ukkasha. Ibn Muqsim. That's why I got the name from Sahaba. So Prophet he said, Anta minhum. You're from amongst them. But one narration said that when he asked the Prophet heard the door in Jannah open.
Yeah.
Another, Jibril came to him and told him he's from amongst them. Allah has accepted your dua. Likewise, in this one, one narration says he heard the door open. Or Jibril informed him, because you love that surah, Surah Ikhlas, because you're reading it after every recitation, on the end of everything you read, because of your love for that surah, and its aqidah, its belief, what it stands for, that has got you Jannah. You're entering Jannah because of this. In this other hadith said, Thulutha, Quran, Qul Huwallahu Ahad. Some people think that means if you read the surah, it's like you read a third of the Quran. That's not true. The meaning is a third of the message, a third of the belief, a third of the rules and Surah Al-Ikhlas is found in the Quran. A third of the Quran is this message that's in Surah Al-Ikhlas. Because the Quran is divided into qasas, stories, the people of the hellfire and the Jannah, ahkam, rules and regulations, at-tawheed, al-aqidah, like this. So instead the hadith, Surah Al-Ikhlas, ta'addi ila thuluth al-Quran, it equals a third of the Quran, meaning its message is a third of the message of the Quran. As for whoever reads Surah Al-Ikhlas, man qara'a Surah Al-Ikhlas مية مرة في كل ليل يكون مع الله واحد. هذا هو ماذا افتراء على النبي كذبا بهتان. As for the narration, that there's many books, whoever reads Surah Al-Ikhlas 1,000,000 times in one night will become equal, will become one with Allah, then this is fabricated. There's no way. You might be punished by Allah, but you ain't going to become one with Allah because you said Ikhlas 1,000,000 times. Okay.
جمعه صلى الله عليه وسلم بين النظائر وغيرها في الركعة. وكان يقرن بين النظائر من المفصل، فكان يقرأ سورة الرحمن والنجم في ركعة، اقتربت الحاقة في ركعة، والطور الذاريات في ركعة، إذا وقعت ونون في ركعة، سأل سائل والنازعات في ركعة، ويل للمطففين وعبس في ركعة، المدثر والمزمل في ركعة، هل أتى ولا أقسم بيوم القيامة في ركعة، عما يتساءلون والمرسلات في ركعة، الدخان إذا الشمس كورت في ركعة.
Yes, Salah. This is showing what the Prophet will pair up in the Salah. And all of this is done so that people, again, the question about khushu'. May Allah Azza wa Jalla give us khushu'. Khushu' means that in your heart, you're attentive. Your mind is in the Salah. You're reflecting. It's making you, when you finish Salah, want to stay away from sin. It's not you pray and when you finish Salah, you have no effect on going to sin. Salah is supposed to be something to protect you from the hellfire, not push you to the hellfire. So part of how this works, the Prophet would read certain things together, certain combinations. Certain surah go with other surah because the message is similar. Certain things in one surah you'll find in another surah, said the same way or slightly different. So the Prophet will pair these together in his reading. Right? You remember last night I recited Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayy al-qayyum. One from Baqarah and the other from Ali Imran. Aywa, sah. So and there was a reason I did that. Because of what we were talking about with the Shia and this and that. SubhanAllah. So here it mentions the Prophet again, can يقرأ
كان يقرأ بين النظائر من المفصل.
بين المظاهر والمفصل. مفصل مظاهر. what they call مفصل المظاهر. This means a certain part of the Quran.
No.
And so, for example, he mentioned Surah qalam, noon,
Noon.
والحاق. So this is the 20 يعني 27th part of the Quran. 27th Jews. 27 to 8 to 9, 30. So if you're in the 27 Jews, you get an al-haq, mal-haq, وما أدراك ما الحاقة كذبت ثمود وعاد بالقارعة. This just saying all that y'all did, y'all gonna be punished. That's the real reality. Y'all didn't get away with nothing. That's what the all of these surah from the 27th down, talking about Yom Qiyamah. Yeah. Talking about Zariyat, Wakur, Rahman, Waqiyah. Wallah, you read these in Salah, unless you're a munafiq, you're going to have some qasha. You're going to feel like, afraid. You're going to want to cry because I got to stand on this day. Never mind these great people that were wrong. I got to stand on this day? How am I going to stand before Allah? And I still don't get it right. I'm still playing, shucking and jiving, disobeying. This is what I got to go through? Even if I kill myself, I don't escape. Allah is going to raise me on the day of judgment. Yeah, man. So the Prophet read from these often. And alun. They ask you, about the great day. But they were asking out of mockery. Yeah, ain't no Yom Qiyamah coming. When is it coming? Yeah, right, like this. Make a mockery. Adam Billah. So, Mursalat, all of these different, so Abasa wa Tawalla, all of this is connecting you to Allah Ta'ala. So this is the range the Prophet would read between the 27th and the 30th and the Maghrib and the Isha. Sometime he would read a long surah like the Baqarah, Ali Imran, and Nisa. Really, that's for the night prayer. You don't want to put that on the people. But again, we do it because we want the people to hear the Quran. People not people Quran these days like back then. So unless they're in the masjid in Ramadan, they might not hear no Quran. Unless they're playing it on the audio or something. But in the Salah, so sometimes we read from these surah, Ali Imran, Nisa, Baqarah. But really in the Salah, this is the area the Prophet would concentrate on, and this is what the Shaykh is presenting.
وكان أحيانا يجمع بين الصور من السبع الطوال كالبقرة والنساء وآل عمران في ركعة واحدة من صلاة الليل كما سيأتي وكان يقول أفضل الصلاة طول القيام.
سبحان الله وبحمده وسبحان الله العظيم. Allah must did it again. You gotta tell me just be quiet until you read. What I just mentioned you read. Now, as it relates to the night prayer, now the Shaykh is going to bring you how the Prophet would pray in the night. As it relates to the night prayer, the Prophet would read from Baqarah, Ma'idah, Ali Imran, Nisa, like this in the night prayer. Because that's just him and his Lord. He's not burdening anybody. And even the hadith, when he's waking up his family, he wake them up when? He's praying in the night. He's reading long. Baqarah, Ali Imran. How many ayahs is Baqarah?
286. 286.
How many ayahs is Surah Al-Nisa?
200.
200. How many ayahs is Surah Al-Mada Ali Imran?
158.
158. How many ayahs is Surah Al-Ma'idah?
No.
Look, I got your count on your fingers and toes. That's a lot of ayahs.
Yes,
That's what that proves. Imagine. The night is only so long, and see, back then, the night had barakat in it. It lasts long. Now the barakat is taken out of the night, so before you know it, it's much.
Be back in the summer.
Huh?
We'll be back in the summer.
Yeah. The barakat is taken out of the time. When we were studying, seeking ilm, time goes slow. You could do a lot with your time. Pray long, still sleep, this, that, read. Now, watch movie, this to this, that, tell us it's culture. The barakah is taken out because of the sins of the people, the environment. Like Shaikh just mentioned, we just Jum'ah, we just left Jum'ah. Ramadan, the barakah, the gift, the merit, the real value is taken out of time. So imagine back then, the night was long. Prophet reading Baqarah, Ali Imran, Ma'idah. But he would only wake up, it said he would wake Aisha up, he would wake his family up to pray, withdrawing when he's getting ready to pray. Sabbi Hisma Rabbika al-A'la, Yani Kafirun wa Ikhlas. So the point is, that worship is for you. The long prayer, get the name between you and Allah. But with the people, shouldn't be like that because you're going to put a hardship on it. In the Ramadan, Allah, the person, he make the kunut longer than the rak'ah. He's Allahumma, Allahumma, Allahumma. And people, they start off like this. Hands up like this. Allahumma, Allahumma. After 8 minutes, he in third gear. Allahumma, Allahumma, Allahumma. 20 minutes, he like this. Allahumma, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. By 32 minutes, he like, man, I wish he hurry up. But he ain't saying that. Then he just dropped his hands. I think too long. Too long. And this was the Prophet's way in recitation. Then how can we allow this in Ramadan? The Qunut, 40 minutes, half an hour, 28 minutes, the Qunut. The Salat itself, Tilawat, Yani Quran al-Kareem, Kalam Allah. The best speech can't be that long. How can Qunut be that long? علينا أن نعود سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في كل يعني أماكن ومن كل يعني حين. We should go back to the Sunnah of Sallam every time and every place. والله المستعان.
وكان إذا قرأ أليس ذلك بقادر على أن يحيي الموتى قال سبحانك فبلى وإذ قرأ سبح اسم ربك الأعلى قال سبحان ربي الأعلى.
الله أكبر. سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. انظر إلى سنته. Look at this way as example. This was a man of dhikr. Allah, may Allah bless us to reach this reality. This is serious. We take it like, trivial. But look at this man. When he would read the ayats that talk about Yawm al-Qiyamah in the Surah Qiyamah, ancient ayah,
أن يحيي الموتى.
They will read the ayah. Is Allah not able to bring you back to life after death? It's a rhetorical question. Because the people saying the opposite. Are you telling me that we'll be brought back to life after death and being bones? So the end of this surah, Surah Al-Qiyamah, Allah is saying, challenging, after he mentioned all that he's going to do, is not Allah able to bring you back to life after death? Because he did more than that, greater than that, prior in the surah. He's telling you how he did this, how he did that, how he created you, how he this, how he that. Much more than just bringing you back. Kufay. Said when the Prophet would read that ayah, is not Allah able to bring you back after death? He would say, Subhanallah.
سبحانك فبلى.
Subhanaka.
فبلى.
Fabala.
نعم.
Subhanaka. He's giving glory to Allah, meaning you're far above not being able to, and then Mada. Bala. Bala is like when you say, certainly this is the case. It's more than saying nah. Like if the Prophet would say, Alaysa kadalik, is that not the truth? He's telling you something, and then after he tell you, say, Alaysa kadalik, is that not so? Then they would say, Bala, meaning certainly yes. So here the Prophet would say, Subhanaka Bala. Subhanaka here means you're not limited. Nothing restricts you. You're above all your creation. And Bala means certainly you're able to bring people back, and you will after they have reached the death. Then, Sabbi Hisma Rabbika al-A'la. When he will read that, he will say, Subhana Rabbil al-A'la. Because this is the command form. The statement itself, the ayah, Sabbih. That's telling you to say Subhanallah. So if we say sabbih, then that means you're going to say subhanallah. Like saying takbir, that's when you say Allahu Akbar. But the Prophet himself, sabbih isma rabbika al-a'la, he says subhanallah al-a'la. Because that's what Allah is telling you in the ayah, Rabbi A'la, that's Allah, the Lord, the Most High. So when the Prophet would read those commands or those statements that require a statement of affirming or agreeing, he would do that even in the Salah. And I remember we were at one particular masjid, the people, they learned this. So when the Imam was leading on Jummah, he said, Sabbih isma rabbika al-a'la. The whole masjid said, Subhana rabbil al-a'la. And people thought, what the hell? After the Salah, they were looking. They didn't know that sunnah. But they learned that sunnah, so they practiced it. Why did they do it? Because the Prophet who was leading Salah did it. It's a command form for whoever hears it to glorify Allah. So if you hear somebody leading Salah, he says, Sabbih isma rabbika al-a'la. That person, if he says after that, he pauses and says, Subhana rabbil al-a'la, or people behind him say, Subhana rabbil al-a'la. This is why, because that's what the ayah, the statement itself is telling you, glorify Allah.
جواز الاقتصار على الفاتحة.
جواز اختصار
على
على
الفاتحة.
الفاتحة. What time is it now?
5:50 4:51.
Okay, quick.
وكان معاذ يصلي مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم العشاء ثم يرجع فيصلي بأصحابه فرجع ذات ليلة فصلى بهم وصلى فتى من قومه من بني سلمة يقال له سليم فلما طال على الفتى انصرف فصلى في ناحية المسجد وخرج وأخذ بخطام بعيره وانطلق فلما صلى معاذ ذكر ذلك له فقال إن هذا به لنفاق لأخبرن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالذي صنع وقال الفتى وأنا لأخبرن رسول الله بالذي صنع فغدوا على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فأخبره معاذ بالذي صنع الفتى فقال الفتى يا رسول الله يطيل المكث عندك ثم يرجع فيطيل علينا فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أفتان أنت يا معاذ وقال للفتى كيف تصنع أنت يا ابن أخي إذا صليت قال أقرأ بفاتح الكتاب وأسأل الله الجنة وأعوذ به من النار وإني لأدري ما دندنتك ودندنته معاذ فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إني ومعاذ حول هاتين أو نحو ذا قال فقال الفتى ولكن سيعلم معاذ إذ قدم القوم وقد خبروا أن العدو قد أتوا قال فقدموا فاستشهد الفتى فقال رسول الله بعد ذلك لمعاذ ما فعل خصمي وخصمك قال يا رسول الله صدق الله وكذبت استشهد.
نعم. هنا the Prophet ﷺ, Shaykh al-Bani took this narration and he made a chapter, جواز اختصار على الفاتحة. على ماذا الفاتحة? The prohibition, the allowance of making the salat short and sufficing with al-Fatiha. Now, you get more than that out of the chapter, but what the Prophet ﷺ is doing is showing how you can just pray al-Fatiha, and if you pray something after al-Fatiha, is recommended, but if you don't, there's no sin on you. Because some people think you pray al-Fatiha and you have to pray something after al-Fatiha, and then this drives them to read something long. Because they think that the obligation is to recite al-Fatiha and something after al-Fatiha. So what happened was Ma'af ibn Jabal, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He was the imam in the masjid close to the Prophet's masjid, on the outskirts, on the border of Medina. So imagine if you pray here and then you go to Wapenters. Or you pray, yani Mada, in one city, and you go 10 minutes away to the other masjid, they're waiting on you. But you want to pray behind the big sheikh. You want to pray behind the imam, because the virtue is to pray behind people virtue. Who was more virtuous than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So Mu'adh would pray with the Prophet. Then he would go and lead his people in salah. Now mind you, the norm for the Prophet is to pray Isha in his earliest time period or close to the latter time period.
Latter.
Somebody say close, somebody say latter.
What's the question again, Shaykh?
يعني ما هو يعني العادة النبي بالنسبة لصلاة يعني العشاء يصليها مبكرة أو متأخرة؟
متأخر.
Prophet would pray delayed later. That's why I said a lot of times the salat would be like, you know, close to nisful layl, midnight, you know, because the people are tired. You're working outside, it's hot, then you take a nap before they pray Isha. You know, some scholars says makruh, dislike to sleep before Maghrib, so you pray Isha, you want to take a nap. But, you know, if Isha come in and you didn't pray it, you can lay down. You know, you can lay down if you have to, like, get some rest, because, again, if you don't have the proper rest, then you won't have, for sure, you won't be able to concentrate. So keep that in mind. Salat sometimes is late, more so than not Isha. Mu'adh goes, he leaves the Salat, and a man left the rank and prayed in the courtyard of the masjid. So imagine man leaves the masjid, he pray in the hallway you could hear. Took his camel, bounced. Mu'adh still, Alif Lam Mim, Dhalika al-Kitabu la rayba fihi hudan lil-muttaqin. واتبعوا ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان وما كفر سليمان ولكن الشياطين كفروا الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم. He's reading from Baqarah. Man said, man, listen, I work too hard, wrestling sheep and goat all day. I am not standing. Listen, I'm out of here. He breaks out the rank, goes and prays in the courtyard of the masjid. Short sword, he bounced. Of course, somebody going to hear his recitation when it's quiet. Afterwards, Mu'adh says, who was that? He said, that was so-and-so. He said, no one will do that except the munafiq. Pass judgment on him. No one will do that except the munafiq. Pass judgment on him. When it reached the Prophet, if that happened, again, people talk. Man, wait till we tell the Prophet. Run their mouth. Prophet sent for Mu'adh. Now, he didn't take what, this is the first point. First point, Mu'adh was reading long in the Salah. What was the chapter that we covered before this? How the Prophet would read and shorten the Salah. Because the needs of the people. Number two, quick to make a judgment. And Mu'adh was a scholar. Mu'adh was a scholar of ilm. Prophet sent them to Yemen at 19. As an alim, a young scholar amongst the Sahaba. He's the one that the Prophet took by a hand and 4 different ways made dua and swore that he loved them and told them, don't forget after every time you pray to say these words. Mu'adh was very beloved to the Prophet. He's on the riding beast behind the Prophet and he says, O Mu'adh, أَتَدْرِي مَا حَقَّ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ وَحَقَّ الْعِبَادِ عَلَى اللَّهِ. You know what Allah has to do for the servant and what's the servant have to do for Allah? What's the rights? This is Mu'adh, man. I went to the Prophet with that mistake. Said no one was break the rank. On top of that, pray by himself, short, and leave except the munafiq. Ooh, that's a strong speech. That means you're going to hell. You ain't a Muslim. You just faking. That's what munafiq means. The Prophet said, the Prophet asked him, what happened? Did that happen? That's something we don't do. Someone narrate a story about somebody we hear, we go run. Ooh, you know what I heard? Run in your mouth. That is from Jannah and the mind. The one who spread tales, the Prophet said they won't enter the Jannah. Just because your tongue, you running your mouth. Prophet asked Mu'adh himself, let him speak for himself, let him defend himself, let him incriminate himself. What happened? I told the truth. He didn't lie. He didn't blame the man. He said, listen, he went and prayed, broke the rank, and I said he's a munafiq. That's what happened. The Prophet said, Afatana anta ya Mu'adh. Afatana anta ya Mu'adh. Afatana anta ya Mu'adh. 3 times in one narration. Fatan is stronger than saying anta fitna ala nasi. You're making fitna for the people. No. Fatan is almost like saying you replace fatan with shaitan. The pattern that the word is on in Arabic has a meaning to the way the word is used, how strong the language. So shaitan, fatan, it's on that verb scale. So it's almost like saying, oh, you're a devilish, fit-the-making person for the people. It's almost like the prophet saying that to him. And he told Mu'adh, it's enough for you to read al-Fatiha, glorify, remember Allah wa ta'ala. In other words, you don't have to read that long. Al-Fatiha is enough. You're not going to get more virtue than that. Make the salat short. And another word that he told him, read wa-duha, wa-shamsi wa-duhaha, those surahs that we mentioned from the other chapter that are from the mufassilat, the concise or compact surahs. Now,
الجهر والإسرار في الصلوات الخمس وغيرها. وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يجهر بالقراءة في صلاة الصبح وفي الركعتين الأوليين من المغرب والعشاء ويسر بها في الظهر والعصر والثالثة من المغرب والأخريين من العشاء.
Hey, go to the next chapter. You could have took that out. We're just saying when the prophet made his recitation out loud or not.
الجهر والإسرار في القراءة في صلاة الليل.
Take
وأما في صلاة الليل فكان تارة يسر وتارة يجهر وكان إذا قرأ وهو في البيت يسمع قراءته من في الحجرة وكان ربما رفع صوته أكثر من ذلك حتى يسمعه من كان على عريشة.
Now the Shaykh is bringing, we skip how the Prophet prayed during the 5 daily prayer, which one was out loud, which one were inaudible. I don't like to use silent because again we said in Arabic there's no such thing. I'm praying silent. That means you're not moving your lips. If you don't move your lips in Arabic, you can't hear yourself. It's not considered kalam in Arabic. It's not considered speech in Arabic. You have to be moving your lips with the Arabic letters from the positions that they come from. This is important. We keep saying the makharij huruf, where the letters come from, or sifat al-huruf, and their description. Some letters ali, some yani, laysa bi ali, some of them yani lane, some are soft, some are elevated. Sometimes it depends on what comes out after the letter. It may become soft because that letter comes after it. You have mufakkam, hard, soft. You have light. You have all of these different descriptions of letters. You have aqsal halaq, adna halaq, a'la halaq, the top of the throat, the middle of the throat, the bottom of the throat. You have alladhi madha bayna asnaini, between the teeth, what fawqa asnain. All of this is part of the Arabic language. And if you're doing all of that with your tongue, your throat, and your jaws, there's no way you're going to just be with your mouth closed. So here, you say inaudible, meaning people can't really hear what you're saying, but you're saying something. So the Prophet ﷺ here, Shaykh al-Albani is talking about how his tone of recitation, what he used to allow to be heard or not heard in the night prayer. Because we skipped what was heard in the 5 daily prayer. We already covered that, so we skipped that. Now, he said the Prophet ﷺ sometime kana yajhar or kana
يسر ويجهر.
Sometimes yasiru here, again, it means between you and your Lord. It doesn't mean nobody hears you at all. You're not saying anything. And yajhaw means somebody else can hear you. So he will pray sometime, recitation will be low. Nobody can hear him but him. Nobody in the next room, nobody outside the window, nobody in the next house, just him. Other times, somebody could hear him if they were passing by or they're in the next room. You know, he would raise his voice. Recitation wouldn't always be the same volume in the night prayer.
وبذلك أمر أبا بكر وعمر رضي الله عنهما وذلك حينما خرج ليلة فإذا هو بأبي بكر رضي الله عنه يصلي يخفض من صوته ومر بعمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه وهو يصلي رافعا صوته فلما اجتمعا عند النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال يا أبا بكر مررت بك وأنت تصلي تخفض من صوتك قال قد أسمعت من ناجيت يا رسول الله وقال لعمر مررت بك وأنت تصلي رافعا صوتك فقال يا رسول الله أوقظ الوسنان وأطرد الشيطان فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يا أبا بكر ارفع من صوتك شيئا وقال لعمر اخفض من صوتك شيئا.
Now, hold on. The Prophet not only himself had his recitation in different volumes in the night prayer, but he also talked with Abu Bakr and Umar about this. Abu Bakr.
نعم.
It's a Mara bi Abu Bakr. It made me think of Shaykh Abdul Hakim quick. You know, he's not only a scholar when it comes to history and Islamic knowledge, but it's also African sport. It says Booker T. Washington. Booker. It comes from the name Babaka. The Africans, Babaka. And I have a friend, he's from Burundi. He confirmed this because he named his son Abu Bakr, but he said back home they called him Babaka. So they took Babaka and made it Booker. So Booker T. Washington's name was Booker. He changed it to Booker. Was Booker. Yeah, I mean Booker was Babaka. Babaka. A Muslim. He was a Muslim people.
The Senegalese and
Yeah, Senegalese. Yeah. Yeah.
Babakar.
Yeah.
Babakar.
Babakar. Yeah. So maybe think about that when he said Mara Babakar. Yeah, Babakar. Hey, Prophet was passing by Abu Bakr and Umar, you know, one night. They were praying. And this shows you that people get up and pray in the night. You can't be a person of righteousness if you don't pray in the night. How about you don't pray the 5 daily prayers? How many Muslims don't pray the 5 daily prayers?
Allah.
A lot. A lot. We say a lot. By experience. By knowledge. You go to a Muslim country, the masajid big like a museum. Big like the White House. Big like Sam's Club. Big. Like a park. Masjid ain't supposed to be empty and you got, 80 million people Muslim. That's supposed to be packed for Fajr. We in Yemen, the masajid were packed because this was a place of talaba area. So you get up, you gotta pray Fajr. You can't be in the dars and little shed and the student you praying in the house. Shaykh gonna blast you. That's Allah. You better be sick. I remember they used to knock on my door. And I have an excuse from the Shaykh, sick. Or whatever, like this. Yeah. But yeah, so imagine you in a big Muslim country, masajid empty for Fajr. Door a few more people, Asr, a few more people, Maghrib, some people, Isha, some people, but never the masjid packed until when?
Ramadan.
Jumu'ah. Ramadan, somebody said Jumu'ah. Bingo, you got it right, yeah. The masjid packed, you got to pray outside. They're all in the street. With musallas, sajada, mats, they praying in the street for miles like a parade. And all the Muslims as Jumu'ah can't get in the masjid. Ramadan, same thing. You know when it's the first day of Ramadan. All the buses and cars stop, people all in the street praying. Yeah, they gonna eat too. They gonna eat. Got that right. But as for the 5 daily prayer, Allah must die. So this is what we're talking about. You can't be a Ramadan praying Muslim, Jummah Muslim, that's it. Nah, you gotta pray something about the comes to dying and whatever. All the time you gotta pray. Allah must die. About people who struggle with the salah. Pray sometime. I prayed Maghrib today, but I went to sleep and then prayed Isha. I prayed Fajr late. Okay, I prayed Dhuhr. I didn't pray Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. Tomorrow I prayed Fajr. I didn't pray Dhuhr. I was at work. I was busy. I didn't pray Maghrib and Isha. 2-3 days passed. And I tried to pray my Fajr. Difficult on the soul. So now you're talking about people that pray the 5 daily prayer. Abu Bakr and Umar. And they praying in the night prayer. You wonder why their character was the way it was. They had strength, aid from Allah. Praying in the night. Allah Akbar. So the Prophet said he passed by Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr was praying Sawf Yani Khafi. Passed by Umar, Kana Sawfu Yani Murtafa'an. His voice was loud, raised. So when he got them together, he said, Ya Abu Bakr, Marrabtu Yani Bika, wa kunta tusalli, wa sawtuka Yani Khafiyan. Said, I would pass by you praying, and your voice Yani was kind of low. Said, Umar, pass by you, you were praying, your voice, you had that thing up. So he said, Yani Abu Bakr, Yani told him, raise your voice, irfa and so the Shaikh. Raise your voice, a little bit something, And he told Umar the opposite, Yani irfa so the Shaikh. Yani raise, lower your voice a little bit, adjusting the body. And he asked Abu Bakr first. He said, why you have your voice so low? He said, I didn't want to disturb the people in the next room, Asma and them, because sometimes, the family be there, whatever, Asma's his daughter, they don't want to, wake her. And then he asked Umar, he said, why you have your voice so loud? I said, because I want to keep them shayateen away. Keep the devils away. They want to hear this thing. So he said, okay, just lower yours a little bit, and Abu Bakr raise yours a little bit. Lord.
وكان يقول الجاهر بالقرآن كالجاهر بالصدقة والمسر بالقرآن كالمسر بالصدقة.
The one who, Al-Bani said, the Prophet used to mention the one who does both. Raise his voice with Quran, is charity. One who lowered his voice, is charity. So Abu Bakr lowered his voice because he didn't want to disturb the people in the house, is a type of charity. And Umar raised his voice because he wanted to keep the shayateen away, is a type of charity. There's a statement the scholars say that matches this. They say, well, they could live colon maqam. Every statement has its proper place. Now.
ما كان يقرأه صلى الله عليه وسلم في الصلوات. وأما ما كان يقرأه صلى الله عليه وسلم في الصلوات من الصور والآيات فإن ذلك يختلف باختلاف الصلوات الخمس وغيرها. وهاك تفصيل ذلك المبتدئين بالصلاة الأولى من الخمس.
Okay, خلاص. We just say now with detail what the prophet read and how to do the prayer, the night prayer.
القراءة في سنة الفجر. وأما قراءته في ركعتي سنة الفجر فكانت خفيفة جدا حتى إن عائشة رضي الله عنها كانت تقول هل قرأ فيها بأم الكتاب؟ وكان أحيانا يقرأ بالفاتحة في الأولى منها آية قولوا آمنا بالله وما أنزل إلينا إلى آخر الآية وفي الأخرى قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم إلى آخرها.
This next chapter, we skip. For those following along, we skip what he used to read in the 5-minute prayer, the night prayer, and went to the chapter of the Prophet what he used to read in the Sunnahs of Fajr. Sunnahs of Fajr. What is Sunnahs of Fajr? What does it mean? What's meant by Sunnahs of Fajr?
It's recommended prayer you pray before Fajr.
Recommended prayer you pray before Fajr. My man, 50 grand.
The 2 rak'ah that you pray before Fajr.
2 rakat you pray before Fajr.
Yeah, it's called Sunnat al-Fajr, but it could be Tahiyyat al-Masjid or, something like that.
Hey,
yeah.
okay. So Sunnahs before Fajr, meaning Fajr is at 5:30, you pray 2 Sunnahs at 5:15 before Fajr?
Once Fajr is in, but before.
You would have gone with it.
Yeah. Fihi tafsir. You got to give detail when you mention something that's, vague. It's clear, but somebody could read that and understand what we just said. And many people have. Yeah. Hey, Also, is this recommended or obligation to pray these 2 raka'at before Fajr? Mustahab, recommended. If you don't do it, no sin on you. If you do it, you get a reward. Yani sunnah mu'akkada, if you do it, you get a reward. If you leave it off, it's a sin because it's so highly important, stressed. Or there's no sin on you, but it's disliked if you leave it off. This is the meaning of mu'akkad, sunnah mu'akkada. Hey, home.
Yeah, this one.
Second one.
Yeah, second one.
Allah for people. MashaAllah. Allah bless you all, appreciate your knowledge and application. I mean, now, most scholars they say sunnah mu'akkada. Sunnah mu'akkada, mu'akkad from akkadu, when you emphasize something, something to emphasize because it's important. And the reason they say that because Prophet in some narrations they said he never left off the sunnahs of Fajr, even when he traveled.
No.
And with them.
With them.
Also, Aisha said the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the 2 raka'at that you pray before Fajr, meaning before the iqamah of Fajr after the adhan. Before the iqamah of Fajr after the adhan, those 2 raka'at are more beloved to Allah than the dunya and everything in it.
No.
Say it again. Like my Shaikh don't deep. I'll say it again. It just came out. That's how I used to be too. I'll say it again. That was deep. That's a lie. I appreciate that. I have to love the Lord. Allah bless him for giving shortcomings. I mean, that was up there now. He in the 70s, like she out. The clock is ticking, man. In the 70s, man. And Shaikh Ra'uf, all the they getting up there, man. SubhanAllah, man. I remember when I met him, he was in his 40s. He's in his 70s now, man. That was a deed. Allahumma sta'ala. Oh, I miss you. He's from the first of my teachers. Allah bless him. Give him a shock, I'm telling
He
you.
was one of the people who brought the silver as well.
Yeah, mashallah. Hey, so the point is, if Aisha said mentioned that the 2 sunnahs that you pray, and I have to emphasize it again, after the time of Fajr has come in, not before, and before the iqamah, and the iqamah, when it comes to women, some scholars they said the lady shouldn't call the adhan because of her voice. People think you're crazy today because our women loud, this, that, don't care about the voices. I mean, we're in life, you gotta speak, or, people work jobs. So, people don't understand voice control and this and that in this society. But, when we talk about in that society, and then you're talking about, women might not have known martial arts, and they didn't have guns and knives and pistols, and people just grab you and, kidnap you and rape you. Yeah, but, watch your voice, because you don't know who people, around hear you to have a sick, mentality. Your voice is attractive. That's why Allah prohibit the ladies to be seductive with their voice. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jal asked the Prophet's wife from behind you, hijab, something between you and them. All of this because of the social ills of that time. So some scholars said the lady shouldn't call the adhan. Others said she could call it, but call it with a voice that's low where men don't hear it. Others say it's part of the dhikr, and this was the position of our mother Aisha. It's part of the dhikr. How you gonna say I shouldn't? You can't. Iqamah, most of them say the lady should call the iqamah because it distinguishes she's praying the 5:30 prayer from something other than the 5:30 prayer. This is extra fit of the issue. But the Prophet said that the 2 sunnahs of Fajr, more beloved to Allah than the dunya and everything in it. One narration, Bawdatul Yani Janahatul Bawdah, the wing of a what? Mosquito. هكذا؟
البعوضة.
بعوضة So, and the reason being because it's hard enough to get up for Fajr. You go and pray something before you pray Fajr, has to be something you love to Allah. You only doing that to please Allah. You ain't doing that to show off. Yeah, man. And remind you, most of the sunnah is in the house. We live far from the masjid today, so you drive and you pray your two in the masjid. But the sunnah of the Prophet, you make those, nobody sees you, it's just you and Allah. Once you hit the masjid, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Shadda la ilaha, Shadda Muhammad Rasulullah, and calm and you pray. So you see the sincerity in those two sunnah of Fajr. As for Tahiyyat al-Masjid, this could be considered two sunnahs of Fajr, meaning you come to the masjid and you pray 2 rak'ah, as they say, for respect and greeting the masjid, because you prayed your 2 sunnahs at home before you came. This is a separate issue. If you didn't pray anything and you came to the masjid, then it will be considered sunnahs of Fajr, but it's also the first thing you pray in the masjid. In the Ma'amal bin Niyat. Now. And Aisha, she also said that the Prophet sometimes he would read khafiyan. They translate this in Arabic as swift, quick. That's a bad translation. Sometimes his sunnahs of Fajr will be khafiyan. They translate this quick. So people think Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah, like the chicken we said again. No. What Aisha means here is talking about the recitation length. So much so she used to say, did you even pray Al-Fatiha? Because his normal way of recitation was slow. And that's something we skipped over, but they mentioned that someone would pray in the night and he would make Anfal long like Surah A'raf. Which one is longer? A'raf. But he will make A'raf, which is number 7, number 7, he will make it long like Anfal. He will make Anfal, which is the one after number 8. He will make it seem as if Anfal number 8 was longer than the one prior, number 7, A'raf. Why? Because how slow he read. So you could take a surah that's shorter than another surah, but the way you read it, it may seem longer than the surah that has more length to it, because the way you read, how you stress the words and the elongations, and you're not speeding. So imagine he's praying the sunnahs of Fajr. She said, did you even pray? Did you even recite Al-Fatiha? She don't mean that he went so quick he had no khushur. He did like some people, spent the length of time that he normally takes, he didn't take that length of time. So sometimes they translate in the books that he prayed his 2 sunnahs of Fajr quickly or fast. No, that's not the meaning. Meaning his recitation wasn't the way that it would normally be. Sometimes he would read Yahu Kitab Ta'ala ila kalimatin sawa bainana wa bainakum. That's Surah Ali Imran. All people of both, that's come to terms of agreements between us. Allah na'budu illallah. We will only worship Allah. Sometimes he will read Kul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun in one ayah and Kul Huwallahu Ahad in another ayah. But again, he's talking about the length of time and not how quick he moved when she said khafi, light. His recitation was light versus long or lengthy.
صلاة الظهر وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ في الركعتين الأوليين بفاتحة الكتاب والسورتين ويطول في الأولى ما لا يطول في الثانية.
The Prophet ﷺ here dhuhr. He will pray dhuhr, and in the first 2 rak'ah, how many rak'ah of dhuhr? 4. The first 2 of dhuhr will make them long. And the first rak'ah will be longer than the second. And we used to get a chance to see this when we were in Yemen. Some people think, man, all they talk about Yemen. like Yemen was all that. But Yemen was a place of Sunnah. You got a chance to see a lot of Sunnah in Yemen that you didn't see in other places because they were serious about learning and practicing that Sunnah. I mean, you're praying Dhuhr, and you're just like, wow, is the Imam sleep or what? Because he's just standing. The first rak'ah is longer than the second rak'ah, and this is the second longest salah that you pray. Fajr is long, and the second is Dhuhr. So, you know, we used to a in and out. I got to get back to my job. I think I got to know, man, listen. Prophet would make his Dhuhr long. First rak'ah longer than the second. And the second was not that much shorter than the first. Then, of course, the last two were not as long as the first and the second. Because you're just going to recite Al-Fatiha as opposed to Al-Fatiha and something from the Quran. That's the typical rule. The first two, Al-Fatiha, something from the Quran. Whether you're praying inaudible or where people can hear you, that's the normal rule. First two rak'ah, Al-Fatiha, and something from the Quran, and the last two or the last one, like you're praying in Maghrib, then you just pray Al-Fatiha. Now.
وجوب قراءة الفاتحة في كل ركعة. You have to read this one. Okay. وقد أمر المسيء صلاته بقراءة الفاتحة في كل ركعة حيث قال له بعد أن أمره بقراءتها في الركعة الأولى ثم افعل ذلك في صلاتك كلها وفي رواية في كل ركعة وكان يسمعهم الآية أحيانا.
Okay, here. Prophet now is Shaikh is bringing obligation of reading Al-Fatiha in every rak'ah. So again, you hear it's general now.
Mm-hmm.
You go back, he mentioned this in the beginning when he talked about Al-Fatiha. Then he said it's abrogated. You don't say nothing behind the Imam except that the Salah is inaudible. Then when it's inaudible, like they like to say silent, you recite your own Al-Fatiha. But when you hear the Imam, you don't say nothing. Now the Shaykh is saying, وُجُوبَ قِرَاءَةِ الْفَاتِحَةِ بِكُلِّ رَكَعَةٍ. The obligation of reciting Al-Fatiha in every rak'ah. So you see how it could cause a dilemma with some people, confusion, if you don't sit down and study this issue and understand the context. So here, every rak'ah, some scholars said you must recite Al-Fatiha. Or mada? You couldn't read?
في كل ركعة.
وقبل ذلك.
Let me read it again. وقد أمر المسيء صلاته بقراءة الفاتحة في كل ركعة حيث قال له بعد أن أمره بقراءتها في الركعة الأولى ثم افعل ذلك في صلاتك كلها.
Okay. Hey, the last part from it said when the man didn't pray properly. This is another thing. Say you don't have no salah. We don't mean the person that physically pray. We mean the person salah is not proper. You don't have a proper salah. But the way you normally say it, you don't have a salah. No, you have a salah, but it's not complete, it's not proper. So the man who was praying and the prophet kept sending him back to pray, this is one of the things he told him. He said, recite Al-Fatiha and every rak'ah. Told him, recite Al-Fatiha, then he said, and do this in all of the rest of your salah. So this is a proof that you have to recite Al-Fatiha and all of the salah. And then said sometime Yusma, Musma'in, you could hear, and again we're talking about Dhuhr. In this case, it's talking about Dhuhr still, right?
No.
Because he said sometimes you can hear little pieces. So we know it's not talking about all of the salah, it's talking about when you normally don't hear nothing. And we mentioned this before, that the Imam, sometimes we hear bits and pieces, he will do that so that you will know he's not just standing there, he is reciting. So like if you're reciting Falaq, this book, you shouldn't say after the Fatiha the whole surah loud, but you might say pieces, bits and pieces, min sharin was like this. So somebody know, okay, he is reciting, he's praying. He's not just standing there.
You have to jump to Salat al-Asr now?
Oh.
Because the other is just like examples of the surah. Okay. صلاة العصر وكان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ في الأوليين بفاتحة الكتاب وسورتين ويطول في الأولى ما لا يطول في الثانية وكانوا يظنون أنه يريد بذلك أن يدرك الناس الركعة وكان يقرأ في كل منهما قدر 15 آية قدر نصف ما يقرأ في كل من الركعتين الأوليين في الظهر.
Okay, so here, each salat, the amount is different. Fajr, the longest. Dhuhr, the second longest. And how much you read, how long you stand in the first 2 rak'ah. Asr, the first 2 rak'ah is going to be half the amount of what you stood and how you read in Dhuhr. So, for example, if you read the length of 10 ayahs, or the length of 10 minutes in Dhuhr, you're going to read 5 ayahs in Asr, or 5 minutes in Asr. The first 2 rak'ah is going to amount to that. So this is how you know the Prophet had a certain way of praying, and this is how you know that person, again, is concentrating. That means no one should pray and you say, what did you read in Salah? And say, I don't know. You got to really be conscious. Again, all of this is in line with what? Sure. Your heart is attentive. You know what you're doing. You're purposely saying this. You're reading that one. You're purposely doing this amount, that amount, this subject matter, that subject matter.
صلاة المغرب وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ فيها أحيانا بقصار المفصل حتى إنهم كانوا إذا صلوا معه وسلم بهم انصرف أحدهم وإنه ليبصر مواقع نبله.
مرة أخرى
وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ فيها أحيانا بقصار المفصل حتى إنهم كانوا إذا صلوا معه وسلم بهم انصرف أحدهم وإنه ليبصر مواقع نبله. I don't know, نبله or نبله؟ نبله. وقرأ في سفر بالتين والزيتون في الركعة الثانية وكان أحيانا يقرأ بطوال المفصل وأوساطه فكان تارة يقرأ بالذين كفروا وصدوا عن سبيل الله وتارة بالطور وتارة بالمرسلات قرأ بها في آخر صلاة صلاها صلى الله عليه وسلم وكان أحيانا يقرأ بطول الطوليين الأعراف في الركعتين وتارة بالأنفال في الركعتين.
مرة؟ هذا صلاة المرة؟
Yeah.
مرة أخرى من فضلك. هي فوائد يعني أنا أبحث عنها. I'm looking for a certain benefit. That's why I got to read it the third time. This is Maghrib.
Yeah, that's صلاة المغرب.
طيب.
Yeah. Okay, read. وقرأ في سفر بالتين والزيتون في الركعة الثانية.
Okay, طيب. That's the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. So when he traveled, his salat for Maghrib would be different than when he was at home. That's what I'm looking for. When he traveled, he would pray Maghrib differently, meaning the length and what he recited than when he was home. So, for example, if you're traveling, you're going to read Watina wa Zaytun. Watina wa Zaytun, not that meaning I. Watur is the name. Hada badal amin. And what else after Watina wa Zaytun?
This is in the rak'ah الثانية.
And both.
Yeah.
So, example, he's traveling, we're going to take Watina wa Zaytun, break it up. And 2 rak'ah, he finished Watina wa Zaytun. Of course, Maghrib has 3 rak'ah. But in the 3rd rak'ah, he's just going to do a Fatiha and you go to Ya'ani Ruku'. So it's an example of when he's traveling. But now look when he's at home.
At home?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that they're going to tell what he read when he's at home too.
He doesn't say here.
Yeah, but didn't read, didn't tell.
Okay. بالذين كفروا وصدوا عن سبيل الله.
Okay, also that's from Surah what? Muhammad. والذين كفروا وصدوا عن سبيل الله. That's Surah Muhammad 49. Yeah.
وتارة بالطور.
الطور وكتاب مسطور. Yeah.
وتارة بالمرسلات.
مرسلات.
قرأ بها في آخر صلاة صلاها صلى الله عليه وسلم. وكان أحيانا يقرأ بطول طوليين الأعراف في الركعتين وتارة بالأنفال في الركعتين.
Okay, so and sometimes he would read from the two long surahs. Wahua, Ali Imran, and
النساء.
Nisa. This is when he's traveling. This is the difference between when he's traveling and he's at home. Because remember, at home, Maghrib, he's not going to pray that long like that. One of the reasons why, and the people, they get confused with this. They think, Maghrib comes in, let's just say, for example, 5:30. They think we should pray at 5:35 and be finished by 5:40 because the light going to darker, Maghrib is out. No. The Prophet would do that at home so that the women could get back home with the children before it gets too dark, because there's no lights. There's no street lights, house lights, no flashlights. They didn't have that. So they call it ghalas. Ghalas is a part where it's dark, and if you put your hand like this in front of you, you probably couldn't see much of it. That happens at Fajr, and it happens at Maghrib. And there's a narration where Aisha, she went out one time to pray Fajr, and she said, there's another Sahabiyat, she had her face out. It was so dark. And she said, you better put that down. If the Prophet see you like that, but it was so dark, she had her, face open, trying to get to the masjid. That's Fajr. But they call it ghalas. Before, before it gets where you can't see at Maghrib. Likewise at Fajr, in the beginning you can't see, then it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. So if you take the time from Fajr to sunrise, it's normally an hour and 10 minutes. That's the same amount of time from Maghrib to Isha, an hour and 10 minutes. So why did the Prophet pray quicker when he's at home than when he's traveling to Salat al-Maghrib? Because he had concern for the people to get back home before it gets too dark, where they can see. That doesn't mean that Maghrib is only 10-minute window, 15-minute window, like a lot of people thinking, okay, we gotta pray quick, Maghrib's gonna go out. It's light blue. Yeah. No, that's not the meaning of Maghrib going out. He's doing that as consideration for the people. You understand? So this is why his recitation on the trip is different, because he's not trying to read something so people can go back in the house. They're on a trip. They're already in the dark, you see. So that's the point I was listening for in the issue of Maghrib.
القراءة في سنة المغرب. وأما سنة المغرب البعدية فكان يقرأ فيها قل يا أيها الكافرون وقل هو الله أحد.
This is important. The Shaikh, he says Sunnah al-Maghrib al-Ba'adiyya. Why did the Shaikh add Ba'adiyya? What is Ba' and what is Qabl? These are two opposites. Ba' and Qabl. Now I know y'all like this Amma Ba'. Some people can't say nothing else, but that part Amma Ba', they get that thing. Sound good. What's Ba'? After.
Yeah.
And what's Qabl? Before. So Ba' is after and Qabl is before. So he says Sunnatul Maghrib and Ba'diyya. That means there's no sunnahs that go with Maghrib before Maghrib. That's why he said Ba'diyya. The sunnahs that go after Maghrib. He didn't just say sunnahs of Maghrib. He said Sunnah Ba'diyya. To let you know there's no sunnahs before Maghrib. Why? Because he wants to pray and let the women and children get back in the house while they have some light outside. So you pray your sunnahs after Maghrib, not before. Some people will lie. They used to break the Maghrib in Ramadan. Astaghfirullah. Quick, because they say we want to break our fast and pray our sunnahs and then pray Maghrib. There's no sunnahs before Maghrib. Then on top of that, you want to break the fast early? Yeah, wallahi. It was a big argument in the masjid. I think Sunnah Ba'diyya. Sunnah's after Maghrib, not before. ايش هذا؟ هذا Maghrib.
Yeah.
Okay. Inshallah, we'll stop here. So,
Stop inshallah, right?